phrase that sales is a numbers game. So it probably makes sense to start off with a number. Now I want you to write it down. And that number is 76%. 76% of salespeople are average or underperformers. Now, is that because salespeople are just naturally that bad? Well, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. It's really that sales is a skill set. While some people do it naturally, really good salespeople understand that it is a skill set that requires techniques, tactics, and a lot of strategy as well. And so in this video, what I'm going to walk you through is one of the reasons why salespeople actually fail. And in order to understand that, you must understand the traditional sales process. Right? So the traditional approach to sales. Now, regardless of what you're selling or how much experience you have, there is a traditional methodology that salespeople tend to follow. And the first step in that process is to find someone with interest. In other words, find someone that can buy your stuff. Right? And we're all taught, once you find someone that has interest in your product or service, the second thing that we're supposed to do is some type of needs analysis. Right? A series of questions: how much are you buying? Who do you buy from? What do you like about it? What do you think was different? Or what would you like to be different? We're trying to find some kind of gap in what they're doing now. And once we find a needs analysis, we're taught that we present to the gaps that we found here. Right? We tell them how we could solve their problem and present a solution. And once we present our solution, we're taught, right, always be closing. Close, ask for the order, ask for the business. But we don't always hear, yes, we're ready to buy. We typically hear some type of stall or put off or objection. And so we're taught to overcome that and reclose. So at the beginning, we build rapport with them only to get into a battle at the end. The traditional sales process may look familiar. A lot of salespeople use it, a lot of sales organizations use it because it works, or at least it used to. Now, prospects are much smarter. They've gotten used to this process, and they've actually created a process that is counter this, and it actually works better for them. So let's walk through what the prospects process looks like the moment that your salesperson tries to engage them. So we'll label this the prospects process. So the first step in the prospects process is when you try to find interest, or your salespeople try to find interest, they mislead them. In other words, your salesperson calls them on the phone and says, hey, I may be able to help you. And they say something like, we do that in-house. We're under contract. We're happy with who we're using. Go away. Call me next quarter. Some type of variation. And why do they do that? Because you're a salesperson, right? Defenses are up. It's the same thing when you and I walk into a store, and maybe we're walking into an electronics store, and we go in there for a very defined purpose, and the person at the front says, how can I help you? And we all tell this person, I'm just looking. Right? And as soon as they turn around, we start asking questions. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And once they get past the misleading, perhaps they say, well, yeah, come on in anyway. Show me what you got. The second step in the prospects process is what we call unpaid consulting. Right? They like to gather information. Give me all of your information. Give me all of your expertise. Give me all of your product knowledge with no commitment to the next step. They never say, thank you for all the time and information. Now we're going to take that and go beat up the other people that we really want to go with. They don't do that. Right? It's a point of leverage. And our salespeople fall victim to this. Why? Because they've been calling on prospects and calling on prospects, and they finally got someone that was interested, or someone that pretended to be interested. And now they're saying, show me how smart you are. And as a result, we try to establish credibility and expertise, but in reality, we're doing unpaid consulting. And while you're here, how much would something like this cost if we did decide to move forward? Right? Go ahead and talk about money. The first step, once we give them all of our information, is they give us some type of positive feedback. Positive feedback, or at least some hope. Right? They may say, John, that was a really creative idea. Right? Really liked the innovation that you brought to it, gave us some fresh perspective, see why you've been around for a long time. Hey, Brenda, I can definitely see that you've been doing this for a long time. I appreciate the expertise and level of thought that you've put into this. I need to circle back around with my team and we'll get back together in a couple weeks. Right? They give us positive feedback. Now, why in the world would they give us positive feedback when they're either not going to do anything internally or they're going to take your information and shop it? Because they don't want to get into this battle of close and reclose, trying to overcome those stalls, put-offs, and objections. So it's much easier for me to say, looks good, I'll circle back around with you. Looks good, send me some dates and times to reconnect. Looks good, let's talk in a couple weeks. And you go away thinking everything is fine. After positive feedback, the next step in their process is called HIDE, or PPP. That's Prospect Protection Program. Right? They disappear off the face of the earth. Right? We're looking them up on LinkedIn. We're leaving voicemail after voicemail. We're sending them emails, just touching base. And what we're really doing is we're chasing someone that does not want to be caught. And the moment that we have a prospect go into hide mode, that is our fault, not theirs. Because we have to create the environment that we're not right for everyone. And if you don't think we're right for you, that's okay. Just let me know. We'll part as friends, no hard feelings. And we have to be comfortable going for the no. That is our fault, not theirs. So I talked a little bit about how these systems work against each other. So let's explore that a little bit. We try to find someone with interest, and they mislead us. We try to do a needs analysis and start asking questions, and we end up giving away information. We do our presentation, and they tell us, looks really good, right? It may be a demo or proposal or something like that. Looks good. Appreciate all the hard work. We try to close and reclose and get the business, and they're in hide mode. Right? So yes, this has worked for a long, long time, but it doesn't work so much now, especially not with a sophisticated buyer, because they've created a process that they're really good at because they get a lot more practice at it. So if that no longer works, what does? So let's take a quick look at the Sandler process, and we'll see how that maybe works with the traditional process. So just label this one, the Sandler process. And you'll see this is a much more consultative approach to sales. So if their first step is to mislead me about their interest, I have to do what we call a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt, which is a way that we establish rapport. And essentially what it is I cannot look, act, or sound like a traditional salesperson. So you need to think about what a pattern interrupt could be on a phone call. It may be, hey, Amber, I appreciate you taking my phone call. Want to be upfront with you. You and I have never met. Would it be okay if I took 30 seconds to tell you a little bit about why I'm calling, and you can decide whether or not it makes sense for us to have a conversation? Do you have 30 seconds? Now that may not fit you or your personality, but understand you have to interrupt the pattern of a salesperson. If you have to wait till your demo or till your PowerPoint deck or your presentation to say that you're different, you're probably not. Right, so think about what your pattern interrupt could be for your world. The second step is what we call an upfront contract, which is nothing more than a verbal agreement. So if you think maybe about your own salespeople, and maybe sometimes they have great conversations with a prospect, 45 minutes into the meeting, they start wrapping it up, or they shake hands, part ways, and neither party knows what's happening next. It means they didn't have an upfront contract. They didn't set some clearly definable expectations of what's going to happen in the meeting, what their agenda is, what your agenda is, and what the definable outcomes should be. So once we set some expectations with our upfront contract, the third step is pain, or the compelling reason for someone to do something different than what they're doing now. Now in your world, you may be using something like features and benefits, but again, that fits more the traditional model, and prospects are savvy. They know that, they look for it. Pain is going to be different. It's the compelling reason for them to make a switch, for them to make a change. Why does it make sense for them to keep doing what they're doing? Are they willing to de-invest in the way that they're currently running their business, organization, or team. Okay, so pain is truly, truly important. There's a Sandler rule that says no pain, no sale. Right? No pain, no sale. And most salespeople start or stay at the surface, which is just a problem, and we've got to get really good at digging below and finding out what the impact is and why that pain is existing in the first place. And once we establish pain, our next step is to talk about budget. Okay. Budget. We know what it's costing you. How much time, money, and resources are you willing to invest to make this pain go away? You got to keep in mind, just talking about money is only 1/3 of the budget step. There's plenty of people that will pay the money, but they're not willing to invest the time. They're not willing to shift their resources. So if you're just talking about money, you're only 33% of the way there. And once we establish budget, we have to figure out how in the world do they go about making decisions? What's the decision-making process? What is the decision-making process? Not just who is the decision maker, because all decision makers have a decision influencer. Whether you're selling B2B or B2C or to nonprofit or government, it doesn't matter. They all have a process that they use to make decisions. And we've got to be able to figure out what is that? What's the timeline? Where's the decision made? How do they make decisions? Where in the organization? Why is their process set up that way? Right? There's a series of questions that we ask in the decision-making process. And then, and only then do we do our presentation, or really in Sandler we call it fulfillment, right? Where we're fulfilling the pains that we found here and presenting our solution. Now what's going to be a little bit different from the Sandler perspective and why we call it fulfillment is because I should have done all the heavy work up front. We are not relying on the presentation to push the prospect over to a yes. That decision is already made before we ever get to fulfillment or presentation. And the last step is what we call post-sale. So I'll paint a picture for post-sale. If you've ever had a situation where maybe you closed the deal and then you handed it off to an account manager or client services or customer service, and that wasn't a good experience. Something kind of fell through the cracks, or it took a long time to get them up and running with implementation and things like that because we didn't do a good job in the post-sale step. Or if you won the piece of business but you could grow it but you didn't, right? And maybe they bought an additional piece of business from someone else, that happens in the post-sale step. Or if you thought you were going to close the deal and they called you back and said, hey, we're going to hold off to next quarter or next year or indefinitely. It's because we didn't do a good post-sale step and maybe buyer's remorse start to set in. So as you think about why your salespeople fail, it's a good chance that they're falling victim to the prospect's process. Instead of having the guts to push through and say, no, I want to follow a process that works good for them being the prospect, and works better for me. Because we're having an honest, open relationship where at any point we can say, hey, I don't think you're a fit, or they can tell me that they don't think we're a fit, and that's perfectly okay. Now, each one of your salespeople is going to face a point where they're trying to maybe go down this approach that we call Wimp Junction. And it's where they literally wimp out in the sales process and they choose to follow the prospect's process, which is designed for them, versus saying, no, let me follow a process that works well for both of us and we both have a win-win situation. Now, I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but if anything resonated with you, or if it sounds like something that your team is facing, feel free to click the link below or give us a call. In the meantime, good selling.